Okay, welcome to another episode of Ideas at Work and Beyond. With us is Honorable Mark Boughton, the Mayor of Danbury. Welcome, sir.
Well, thanks for having me here, Ivan. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you. I would like the show to focus on your trip to Brazil.
Okay.
Okay, I would like for you to, just give us an overview and report to us exactly what went on in Brazil. Okay. I guess the first question I would like to ask you is, first of all, how many people went with you? Did you go by yourself? Did you have other elected officials with you? How many people?
My wife went. She paid her own way, and most people say, well, you paid for it. Not really. My wife has all the money. I don't have any money. So she paid her own way, so she traveled with me. The Tribuna staff was down there, but they didn't travel with us. They went on their own flight, and we ended up meeting up with them a little bit later in the week that we were down there. So just my wife and I.
Okay. Well, Brazil is considered to be the largest country in Latin America. It is also the leading in economic power in that region. What I would like for you to do before we start talking about your trip, give us an overview when you actually went there, when you got off the plane. What was it like for you?
Well, I think safety and security are an issue in Brazil. There were, in the city I stayed in Sao Paulo, which is the second largest city in Latin America, only behind Mexico City. Crime is rampant. And in fact, last year there were 5,000 murders in Sao Paulo alone. It's a city of about 14 million people. It's comparable in size and population to New York City. But yet they have just terrible challenges with crime and criminals within the city. And they'll tell you that. They're very upfront about that. So first thing that struck me was the police officers waiting for me when I got off the plane at the gate to greet me because they didn't want a situation where somebody got hurt or anything like that. There's one of the things that, as an overview, I can tell you is that Brazil is really a nation of paradoxes. And it's one of the things that struck me through the whole time I was there. For example, the people are some of the nicest people you'll ever want to meet. They're most helpful, the most giving, yet crime is, out of control. So there's that paradox of we have such really nice people, but we have many, many people that are engaged in the criminal element. And so that was something that I noticed right off the bat. In addition to that, what's very noticeable early on, first of all, that the air for that size city is very clear. And the reason it's clear is that most of the vehicles operate on natural gas or a mixture of ethanol and gas. And so they're a little bit ahead of the curve than we are in terms of operating clean, efficient vehicles. That's
quite interesting, too, because here you have America as one of the most powerful countries and economically one of the richest countries in the world. And Brazil is leading in that area.
That's correct.
I find it quite...
There are no, for example, diesel emissions. When I was in the state legislature and I was in the Environment Committee, I was always trying to go after school buses because they don't have any regulation over the diesel, the emissions that come out of the engines. And if you ever stood behind a school bus, you see all those black, fine particulates go up in the air. Well, people breathe that in, it makes them sick. Well, in Sao Paulo, there are no diesel emissions because the buses don't operate on diesel. They operate on natural gas, which burns very clean. So there's a lot of that kind of thing that I noticed, just a little thing for a city that large, that congested. Pollution wasn't as bad as you would think of, say, Mexico City, where they don't run on natural gas. The second thing that you'll notice is that Brazil is really, this city, Sao Paulo, is really struggling with infrastructure. They don't have an up-to-date road system. They don't have an up-to-date bridge system. So what that means is that traffic is literally at a standstill. You will wait to go a mile and a half. It could take you 2 hours. It's that bad, particularly around rush hour. For example, it took us to get into the hotel about 2.5 hours from the airport when it's only about 40 kilometers, which is about maybe 25 miles. But when we went to the airport on the way home, because we left on Saturday night around 9 o'clock. There was no traffic. We got there in you know, half an hour or so. So the infrastructure is very much challenged, and you notice that when you're there.
How was the hotel over there?
Oh, the hotel was fine. I stayed at a Hyatt, which is, you know, a basic
American hotel.
Yeah, you know, you find them everywhere.
Okay.
One of the things you do notice, too, is that all of the stores, they have a real initiative towards full employment. This is the problem with their economy. So they encourage hiring by the stores. So right across the street there was a store sort of like a Home Depot, and I wanted to go in and check it out. So I went across the street and walked in there. There were a lot of people walking around with smocks on, but there weren't a lot of customers. So you could have gotten away with about a third of the staff that was there, but they have regulations in terms of hiring that the stores and retail merchandisers and businesses have to follow. So there were a lot of people standing around not doing much, but you know, but getting paid.
Right. They couldn't get away with that here.
Right, and that was readily noticeable when when you kind of walked in there. But you know, it's a fascinating place. It's again just a country of paradoxes.
Okay, I read the Tribuna. You're well aware?
Yes. Oh, sure.
Okay, I read the Tribuna all the time, and it was quite interesting to see your, you know, the quote that they have. And one here it says that as an American mayor, you are used to just looking at a problem and try to fix it. I could see what the problems were, and I knew how to fix them. I almost wanted to stay there and do it. That's very powerful. That's very passionate too. Could you go into that, please?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did is I had an opportunity to take a break from the conference I was at and meet with the mayor's staff in Sao Paulo, and that would be like meeting with Mayor Bloomberg's staff here in New York. And they kind of, as soon as I got there, they had a lot of questions about how do you handle this problem? What do you handle to do for this problem? In fact, the first question out of the box that they asked me was, what do you do about illegal immigration? And I was sort of stunned. I said, well, I'm kind of down here about illegal immigration. And they said, well, I said, so you have a, you know, what's the problem? They said, well, we have about 200,000 Bolivians that live in Sao Paulo that are not here legally, that are standing on the street looking for work, that or overcrowding apartments. And I said, oh, well, that's a challenge. And, you know, we talked a little bit about some things that could be done.
So the same problem we have here,
they have there.
They also have.
Absolutely. In addition to that, I said, well, what do the Bolivians do? Who are they working for? And they said a lot of them are working in sweatshops for Koreans. And many Koreans have crossed over the border illegally and are sort of making their way in Sao Paulo. So that was, again, another paradox. I'm down in Brazil to talk about illegal immigration, but yet I'm being queried by members of the city's administration there about what to do about the challenge of illegal immigration.
Wow.
The other thing to note about Brazil and Sao Paulo in particular is that it is an ethnically diverse city. Brazilians are Asian, they're Muslim, they're from all over the world. And part of that is because during the early part of the 20th century, Brazil went out and actually actively solicited immigration to their country. They paid people's way to come from Europe in particular, Spain, Italy, a whole host of countries, to move to Brazil because they needed an educated workforce and they were willing to pay people to come and live there. So their descendants now are very visible throughout the city, and particularly Japanese folks that are now Brazilian, Koreans, Asians from all over the world. It's just fascinating to see such a multicultural, multi-ethnic city.
Okay. Well,
in another language and with other customs.
Okay. We have two calls, okay?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Caller, you're in the air. Thank you for waiting.
Hello, Mr. Alchemy. Hello, Mr. Boughton. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing pretty good. How are you?
Let me ask a question on the dump.
Okay.
I believe there's still Superfund cleanup out there through the federal government. Can we get federal money in to clean up the dump, which is, I believe, still leaching into our water table? And I'll hang up and listen to your response. And also, maybe I can put a pitch in for the Mets, huh?
I'm a Mets fan. You know that.
Okay. Really? That's cool. Hey, listen, I'll listen to your response off the air. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the call. Question was about the dump. We're kind of getting off track here a little bit, but that's okay. Let me just address that real quick for the viewer. As far as we're concerned, there's no leaching into the ground table water there. In fact, we paid the city, before I became mayor, spent about $14 million to cap the dump with a rubber membrane over the top, and then there's topsoil on top of that. We have test wells that monitor leaching in the dump, that are around the dump, and we also have flare-off that burns the gas that goes there. So we don't. It's not a contaminated site. It's capped, and the DEP is there every 6 months checking all kinds of runoffs and leachate and things like that. But you know, it's something we have to monitor, and we do have another lawsuit brewing related to the dump that we're in litigation, and that's the company that we paid to cap the dump says that they were underpaid by the previous administration, and we've been trying to sort that out for 5 years. So this is my third dump-related lawsuit that I've had to deal with, so I've gotten to know the place pretty well.
Okay, we will have enough time to do other shows about the city of Danbury.
Sure.
I'm mostly interested in the, you know, your trip to Brazil. So if you have any questions, make sure it's about Brazil, because this show is about the trip the mayor did to Brazil. Okay? Caller, you're in the air. Caller? Okay, caller, you're in the air. Caller, you're in the air. Okay, well, let's go on here.
Continue on.
Okay, here's another quote for you from the Tribune.
So let me just get back to about the fixing the problems. Did you ask me about that? I think we were talking about that before the call came in.
Okay.
One of the things that mayors do all over the world is they talk about how to solve problems. And the problems that I saw in Sao Paulo seemed to me fixable in that the sense of infrastructure and employment and all those things. But there are some systemic problems within the country that go way beyond just a simple fix, and that's a lot of the politicians, a lot of the Brazilian politicians were very upfront about what their challenges are. And there really are two of them. One is corruption within the government, and the second one is crime. The government officials are corrupt because they're being paid off by the criminals, and the criminals are allowed to do the crime because they're paying off the politicians. So it's a vicious circle and cycle that goes on in the country. And what happened is that the public has lost faith in the government to be able to solve those very problems that were articulated to me. The public does not believe in the government at any level, and that's a challenge for them. And that's one of the reasons why many of the people are leaving Brazil, in spite of the expanding economy and more opportunities in the growing middle class.
You know what? With that statement, let me ask you this. Does that change how you look at the whole immigration issue in reference to the Brazilians?
Well, I've always known that the issue of illegal immigration, there's really two issues there. One, there's the issue of laws and the rule of law, and that to me is very important. It's very sacred. The second issue, though, which is much deeper and which is part of the broader conversation that's happening all over the place, is why are people coming to the U.S.? What's the attraction? Are we in some ways playing a role in that in terms of what our hiring policies are and practices are? And then the third piece of that is does it make sense for the United States to become partners with a lot of countries to help elevate their standard of living and help them develop better so that people won't leave. They won't feel the need that they have to leave. And I'd have to tell you where that came up for me, and this really crystallized that realization to me as part of this puzzle, was a discussion I had with a mayor in Arizona who is on a border town, who the U.S. Conference of Mayors was meeting in Las Vegas. He called me and said, Mayor, I want you to come out with me and ride with the Border Patrol. And I said, you know, I can't, because I'm not going on that trip to Las Vegas because I have too much work here. I said, but what's going on? Tell me what's going on. He says, well, last night alone, he said, I went out with the Border Patrol, and in one night, in my little town, which is right on the Arizona-Mexico border, the U.S. border, we apprehended 898 people. In one night? One night. And so he said, it's just unbelievable. And he said, you know, here's the challenge of that, is that 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, people would cross the border freely in his town. Mexicans would visit his Arizona town, they would shop, they would eat at the restaurants, they would go home. Americans would go across the Mexican border to Mexico, they would shop. So something drastically has happened with the economies of both the U.S. and of Latin America, and I think that's something we'll have to, from a national perspective, obviously locally we can't do anything about that, but I think Congress has to look at.
Okay, I'm going to take another call.
Okay.
Caller, you're in the air.
Hi, Mayor Boughton?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you? Listen, I just wanted to comment when you were talking about the infrastructure in Brazil.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you a shout out because I think you've done so much for the city of Danbury in getting our infrastructure up to par. And also for what you were just saying about what can the U.S. do to help some of these other countries to do something so that people won't necessarily want to leave. And I think that's a great idea. I think that we really need to pursue that further and help develop some of these other third world countries. So I think you're doing a great job, and I'm just so happy that you're our mayor.
Oh, thank you. God bless you. That's very nice of you.
You too. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you very much, caller.
Bye-bye. And if I could just kind of build on that a little bit. I'm not saying that we should have like a Marshall Plan where we pump billions and billions of dollars into Latin America. That's been proven that doesn't work. What people told me down there that they needed was, for lack of a better term, consulting. Their police forces need to know how to police. Their federal police need to know how to root out corruption and how to hold people accountable for their actions.
Give them what they need to run their
And they're enthusiastic and they want to learn how to do it right, you know, and to abide by the rule of law. And so that's really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more about technical assistance than I'm talking about monetary assistance. And by the way, the monetary assistance will follow because once the governments have been stabilized and the infrastructure is there, then companies will invest in there. You know, I met with some executives from Bank of Boston. They were pulling out of Brazil. They had sold out their assets. They wanted to get out, only because of the economics right now there. It didn't work, but also because of their concern about the stability of the government.
Exactly.
And if you can stabilize the government, you can spur on investment. Investment spurs on jobs, economic growth, and development, and it grows the middle class of the community. What you see in Sao Paulo is typical in many big cities in Brazil. You see a very wealthy upper class and no middle class and extremely poor group of people that live there.
Okay. Caller, you're in the air.
Oh, good evening, Ivan. Mayor, how you doing?
How are you?
Good evening.
Listen, I think you're answering my question already. I always wanted to know, something's never reported in Ms. Backlear's paper. What did they do to wreck their country? What are they running away from? And I think you answered part of that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the whole country is rifled with corruption. How come we don't have hundreds of thousands of Argentinians trying to come here? What's the difference? Why are they able to manage their country in a good fashion, partake in capitalism and succeed? And we do have a small Argentinian community here, though, in Danbury and Bethel, by the way. I'm not saying they're not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not coming here by the hundreds of thousands. And you also mentioned earlier before that there's sort of restraints on businesses that they can't fire employees that work in department stores. There's like you said there's noticeably employees sitting around doing nothing.
It's very inefficient.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay.
What's going on?
Because I have a lot of calls coming in, so I just want to make sure, ask the questions and then...
I'm nervous when I call in.
Oh, no. I want to give everybody a fair chance,
Nobody else is on the line. Mayor, so you said you witnessed employees sitting around doing nothing at a department store?
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you, okay? Thanks.
Mayor,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the challenge there is that the system is very inefficient. And so whether it's the municipal workers or whether it's department stores, there's an emphasis on overemployment, and then you have a lot of people that really have nothing to do. People want to work, and just getting back to that caller's question, it's what makes me hopeful for a country like Brazil is, first of all, it's the largest country in South America. Second of all, it's larger than the United States.
Exactly.
And with not half the population size, but about three-quarters of the population of the U.S. The potential there with natural resources is phenomenal. The question becomes is there the political will in Brazil to sort of set their house in order? And people are optimistic in the people and in the country, but they've lost faith in the government. I know it's hard for sometimes folks to understand, but what I experienced in the sense of talking to a lot of the folks that live in the city was that they really believe in the country, but they're really down on the government. And it's not just the current government, it's just the way government is practiced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Caller, you're in the air. Thank you for waiting.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to say what a great job that Mayor Bowden is doing, and I just have one question. I know that the new police department is being built in Danbury. How long is that process, and when will that be done?
Well, thank you. But I can tie this into Brazil. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, caller. Before you answer, I wanted to keep this on Brazil, please.
We'll come back and do another one where we'll take calls on about city issues.
Yes.
One of the things that I had a briefing on was security in the country, and I started off our discussion about that. The Brazilian police force is a state police. So there's a state of Sao Paulo, and there are no municipal police. So the city of Sao Paulo does not have a police force. They have a security force that only does security work. They don't do any investigatory work. They don't do any arrests. They don't have any of those powers. They're really there to sort of stand on the street corner, direct traffic, that kind of thing, but they do no actual policing. The real policing is done by the state police. So what happens is there's a disconnect between what happens in the city and what happens to the large organization. They have 15 million people. They only have 180,000 officers for the entire state of Sao Paulo. So it's extremely difficult to manage that. There are a lot of security people visible. They're paid by the businesses that hire security people to stand on the street with the radios in the ears to make sure that you walk into their store or their hotel and don't get accosted or get hurt or anything like that.
I've always a believer that there's a lot of foreigners here in the United States. And I know that if you go out there and you speak to them, they will tell you if they can actually work in their countries and they can live in peace, they wouldn't come here and be subjected to the things that they are forced to.
Right.
They would not do it. And I know that Brazil has a lot of natural resources.
Yes.
It's a beautiful country. It's a huge country. And to me, if we can help them to take advantage of their resources, they wouldn't come here. They would not come here. And I think that part of it is, yes, we have to blame their own government because they're not representing their people. We also have to look at how foreign countries are taking advantage of these resources. But we have another call.
Okay.
Caller, you're in the air.
Yes, good evening.